Scientists just announced 1,121 ocean species in a single year. Not one strange fish, not one deep-sea surprise, 1,121 possible new pieces of the living ocean. And some of them sound like they escaped from a science fiction notebook. A ghost shark, a carnivorous sponge, a worm living inside something described like a glass castle. But the real story is bigger than any one creature. The real story is that the ocean is still not fully known. We have mapped planets, built satellites, and sent cameras into deep space. But under the surface of Earth, life is still waiting to be officially noticed. The announcement comes from Ocean Census, a global effort led by the Nippon Foundation and Nekton. Its mission is almost impossible to hear without stopping for a second. Find 100,000 new marine species in 10 years. Not because the ocean suddenly started making new life, because science is still catching up to what has been there all along. This is what new to science really means. It does not always mean no human has ever seen the animal before. It means the evidence has finally become strong enough for science to begin placing that life into the record. That difference matters, because a creature without a record is almost invisible to conservation. It can exist in the dark, in a cave, on the seafloor, and still be missing from the systems humans use to protect nature. That is why this number matters. 1,121 is not just a headline. It is a crack opening in the wall between the known ocean and the real ocean. If you want more discoveries like this, stay with CreatureCosmos. This channel follows the animals that make Earth feel alien again. Now, look at the first creature that grabbed everyone's attention, the ghost shark. Ghost sharks are not true sharks in the way most people imagine sharks. They belong to a group called chimeras, ancient relatives of sharks and rays with cartilage instead of bone. They often live deep, move like shadows, and look almost unfinished. Large eyes, smooth bodies, long tails, fins that seem to glide rather than swim. They are the kind of animal that makes the deep sea feel like a memory from another age. That is why the phrase ghost shark works so well. It sounds dramatic, but the drama is earned. These animals really do look like the ocean kept an older design hidden in cold water. But the ghost shark is only one doorway into this discovery wave. Another example is the carnivorous sponge. Most people hear the word sponge and imagine something passive. Soft, simple, almost background. But in the deep sea, some sponges have become something much stranger. They do not chase prey. They do not have eyes. They do not have a brain. And yet, some carnivorous sponges can trap tiny animals with structures that act like biological hooks. The idea feels unfair. An animal with no face, no speed, and no obvious weapon can still become a predator. That is the deep sea's favorite trick. It removes the rules you thought were normal. Then, it quietly builds something that works. Every discovery is not just a fact. It is a reminder that evolution does not care whether a body looks familiar to humans. If the design survives, the design is valid. A sponge can become a trap. A shark relative can look like a ghost. A worm can live in a structure that reporting compares to a glass castle. And all of these can exist on the same planet as us, while most people never hear their names. That glass castle worm might be the most poetic image in the entire story. Picture deep water, darkness, pressure, and cold. Then, inside that environment, imagine a tiny animal associated with something delicate and glass-like, not a castle like a fairy tale. A structure that makes the phrase feel unavoidable because it looks too fragile for such a harsh world. That contrast is the hook. The deep ocean is often sold as pure darkness. But darkness is not emptiness. It is architecture. It is behavior. It is chemistry. It is animals building lives in places humans barely understand. Drop a comment right now. Which creature would you watch a full episode on first? The ghost shark, the carnivorous sponge, or the glass castle worm? The ocean does not reveal itself all at once. It reveals itself in fragments. A camera pass over a seafloor, a sample brought up from a remote ridge, a shrimp found in a cave, a worm collected from a structure no one expected, a ribbon-like animal moving through water like a living line. Each fragment is small, but together they become a map of life science did not have before. The number 1,121 is impressive, but the process behind it is even more important. An expedition can find something strange. But finding is not the same as finishing. A specimen has to be imaged. It may need DNA sequencing. It has to be compared with known species. Its body structures have to be described carefully. Scientists have to ask the hardest question in taxonomy. Is this truly new, or is it a known species wearing a different shape, age, sex, or color? That question is why discovery takes time. Nature does not label itself for us. Two animals can look different and still be the same species. Two animals can look nearly identical and be completely different lineages. The ocean makes this harder. Many marine animals are tiny, many are fragile, many live in places that are expensive, dangerous, or technically difficult to reach. Some are known from only a few specimens. This is the bottleneck most people never see. The problem is not only that the ocean is hard to explore. The problem is that the ocean is hard to organize. A camera can show you an animal in seconds, but science may need months or years to prove exactly what that animal is. That is why the Ocean Census goal is so ambitious. It is trying to accelerate the full chain: exploration, collection, imaging, sequencing, identification, description, registration, and finally, visibility in the systems that guide conservation. This is where the story stops being just beautiful, because a species cannot be protected well if it has no scientific identity. You cannot track a population that has no record. You cannot measure a loss if you never documented what was there. You cannot defend a habitat properly if its smallest residents are missing from the evidence. That is why taxonomy is not dusty background science. Taxonomy is the naming infrastructure of life. It is the reason a creature can move from "something strange was seen" to "this species exists." Here is where it was found. Here is why it matters. Subscribe if that idea hits you, because CreatureCosmos is built around one truth: the smallest animals can carry the biggest meaning. Now, think about the timing. This update arrives during a decade when the ocean is under pressure from warming, pollution, overfishing, mining interest, and habitat change. That makes species discovery feel urgent in a new way. Not because every new organism is automatically endangered, but because the clock is running on habitats we still do not fully understand. Some species may be documented before they are threatened. Others may be threatened before anyone even gives them a name. That is the uncomfortable edge of this story. The ocean is not waiting politely for science to finish the catalog. Ecosystems are changing while the catalog is still being written. In a strange way, the 1,121 species number is both hopeful and alarming. Hopeful because discovery is still happening at a massive scale. Alarming because it proves how incomplete our picture still is. Imagine walking into a library where most of the books have no titles. Some are missing covers. Some are written in languages no one has translated yet. Some are already burning at the edges. That is what undocumented biodiversity feels like. Ocean Census is trying to make that library searchable. And the creatures themselves are the pages. A ghost shark is one page. A carnivorous sponge is one page. A cave shrimp is one page. A glass castle worm is one page. The headline says 1,921, but the emotional truth is simpler. Every one of those organisms is a life strategy. Everyone is a body that solved a problem. Everyone is proof that the ocean has been experimenting in silence. The carnivorous sponge is not strange because it wants to be strange. It is strange because in a low-food environment, stillness can become a weapon. The ghost shark is not mysterious because humans named it that. It is mysterious because deep time still has living relatives moving through modern water. The glass castle worm is not magical. It is biology doing architecture under pressure. That is better than magic. Magic does not have to be true. This does. The ocean's creatures do not need exaggeration. They only need enough attention for us to understand what they are. That is why this episode must stay careful. Not all 1,121 species were officially named in one day. Not every organism has its final public story yet. And new to science is not the same as newly born. But none of that makes the discovery smaller. It makes it more real. Real science is not a clean lightning bolt. It is a slow reveal. It is a light moving across the seafloor. It is a researcher noticing that one specimen does not fit the known pattern. It is a database entry that turns into a question. Then, eventually, a species becomes visible. To discover a species is to say, this life exists, and now we must account for it. To name it is to make it harder to ignore. To map it is to connect it to a place. To study it is to admit that even tiny organisms deserve precision. And to share it with the public is to give wonder a job. Wonder can pull attention toward things that would otherwise stay invisible. That is why a ghost shark headline matters. It gets the door open. Then the real science can walk through. If this story makes you look at the ocean differently, comment the word census below. I want to know who stayed all the way into the hidden part of the story. There is another layer here. The 1,021 species are not just trophies for science. They are evidence of collaboration. Ocean discovery at this scale is not one person on one boat. It requires research vessels, remote vehicles, taxonomists, genetic tools, museums, databases, funding, and shared standards. It also requires patience. The deep sea does not care about upload schedules. The ocean gives information slowly. A sample may come from a remote expedition. A video may need expert review. A small body part may hold the clue that separates one species from another. That means the future of ocean discovery is not only about better cameras, it is about better systems, better ways to connect the field, the lab, the database, and the public. Because if the discovery pipeline stays too slow, the unknown stays unknown. And when the unknown stays unknown, decisions are made with missing life. Environmental decisions often depend on what has been documented. If the record is incomplete, the argument for protection can become weaker than the ecosystem actually deserves. The phrase 1,121 species gives that hidden life a signal. It says, there is more here. Look closer. Slow down. Do not mistake darkness for emptiness. Do not mistake smallness for insignificance. Do not mistake unnamed for unimportant. That may be the whole message of this episode. The ocean is not empty. The ocean is undocumented, and documentation changes everything. Once a species enters the record, future scientists can ask better questions. Where does it live? How many are there? What does it eat? What eats it? How does it reproduce? What happens if conditions change? Every answer begins with the same first step. Know that the species exists. That is why this discovery wave feels like a new constellation. Not stars in the sky, species in the water, each one a point of light inside a darker map. Together, they make the ocean less blank. And yet, somehow, more mysterious, because every answer creates a better question. If 1,121 species can be logged in 1 year, what is still waiting next year? If a ghost shark can still emerge from the data, what else is moving beyond the camera light? If a sponge can be a predator, what other simple-looking animals are more complex than we think? If a worm can live in a glass-like structure, what other architectures has biology built in the dark? The Ocean Census update is not the end of a discovery. It is the beginning of 1,121 new questions. And that is much more exciting, because a finished mystery is only satisfying once. An opening mystery keeps pulling you deeper. The ocean has always done that to humans. It gives us a surface we can cross. Then it hides a world underneath. The work of science is to make our maps less ignorant, not perfect, less ignorant. And 1,121 new species is a powerful move in that direction. Maybe the most beautiful part is that this story changes how ordinary ocean footage feels. A dark sea floor is no longer just mud and rock. A cave is no longer just a hole. A sponge is no longer just background texture. After this, every frame can feel like a question. What is alive here? What has been missed? What has no name yet? That is the CreatureCosmos feeling, the familiar world becoming unfamiliar again. The ocean does not need a monster to humble us. It only needs a list, 1,121 entries long. And behind every entry, a body. Behind every body, a survival strategy. Behind every strategy, millions of years of pressure, chance, and adaptation. The next time someone says, we have already explored Earth, remember the ghost shark. Remember the sponge that hunts without chasing. Remember the worm in its glass-like home. Remember the cave shrimp and the countless smaller organisms that will never become famous. Remember that unknown does not always mean far away. Sometimes unknown means deep. Sometimes it means tiny. Sometimes it means alive, but unnamed. That is why this discovery matters. Not because it gives us one perfect answer, because it proves the living world is still larger than the human record. And that should change the way we talk about the ocean. Not as a blue empty space on a map, but as the largest archive of living experiments on Earth. If you want CreatureCosmos to turn one of these animals into a full episode, tell me which one below: ghost shark, carnivorous sponge, glass castle worm, or cave shrimp. The ocean just revealed 1,121 hidden doors. We have only opened a few. And somewhere below the surface, life is still writing pages science has not learned to read yet.